Welcome to the webinar. I'm a little bit mystified by my interface here. Can you hear me? If you can, write something in the questions. Okay, well, I'm going to presume that the beautiful. Okay, let me just a sec. Okay, I think we're good. Welcome to our study of Omniscient Jigme Lingpa's Yuntenze, Treasury of Precious Qualities. And we shall begin with invoking Jigme Lingpa's wisdom, body, the source of love and compassion for all beings, who knows all that is knowable, emanation of Longchenpa, heir to a treasury of mind thelmas, sky-like yogin of the vast expanse of luminosity. Jigme Lingpa, at your feet we pray. So we're presently studying bodhicitta, and again, when we're approaching the topic of bodhicitta, it's probably helpful if we first of all understand bodhicitta as something that's inherent in Buddha nature. It's something that we approximate through the cultivation of bodhicitta in the relative sense, both through understanding its relative and absolute nature. But it's important that we at the same time understand bodhicitta is not something artificial. I think I mentioned some time ago. I mentioned this thing that is spoken about as compassion fatigue, which is a slightly sort of reflects really a misunderstanding of the topic of compassion, and particularly then in the context of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is simply the awakening of our innate mind, but you could say embracing the magnanimity, the courage, the greatness of this spirit. But even though it might run counter to our insecurity and our perception of ourselves in a more ordinary sense, it nevertheless is resonating with a condition that we naturally possess. So we should never think that bodhicitta is unattainable or impossible or something that is overly idealistic. It's simply just the yoga of alignment with natural greatness that we possess. But yes, we do so also in terms of the ordinary mind. We'll look at that. So again, in terms of the classifications, we talk about relative and absolute bodhicitta. Relative bodhicitta is accommodating our relative experience, our condition as we have it right now as a sentient being on the path. And absolute bodhicitta is the recognition of the non-referential ultimate nature of reality that does not, that in and of itself, this great expanse of luminosity doesn't contain the notion of Buddhas and sentient beings. There's no difference between Buddhas and sentient beings. And so with the vision of these, or with an understanding of these two, we're primarily now discussing relative bodhicitta. And again, we divide that into the bodhicitta that aspires to do something for sentient beings, and the one that's actually engaging sentient beings, working for sentient beings. And we typically would we have it both from Longchenpa and also here, and also in Words of My Perfect Teacher, associate the bodhicitta of aspiration with what we call the four boundless: love, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, and the bodhicitta of application with the 6 paramitas. So presently we're then looking at the section which is about the speed of progression. Bodhicitta classified according to the speed of progression. And that's where the root text reads: over many ages are great stores of merit gathered, by chariots drawn by ox or elephant, by courses of the sun and moon. By such examples are there many speeds of progress on the path described. And yet through great determination, endeavor, wisdom, skill, the requisite of 3 unmeasured eons, is suspended. So there's different ways, and we'll look at the different ways in which it is approached. But again, the main thing is, and particularly when we approach this from the tradition of Nagarjuna, the main thing really is that we engender the wish. That's the most important, giving birth. Then how it pans out in terms of time, that's secondary. So Kangyur Rinpoche comments, for those who have excellent means and wisdom, the training in each of the bodhisattvas' sattva activities will produce within a short time an immense accumulation of merit. For someone who lacks this advantage, however, the same accomplishment would require a training in virtue extending over many kalpas. Bodhicitta can therefore be classified according to the speed with which bodhisattvas progress toward the supreme goal. In the Niyata Gati Mudra Avatara Sutra, this is illustrated with 5 similes: the ox chariot, the elephant chariot, the chariot of the sun and moon, the miraculous powers of the Shravakas, and the miraculous powers of the Buddhas. So luckily there's a footnote for that. I wouldn't be able to explain this. So it says the first 2 similes refer to ordinary beings who are unstable, i.e., they wish to go beyond the realms of samsara, but finally fall back and fail to accomplish their goal. The third refers to beings who are ordinary, but nevertheless stable. The fourth is an allusion to beings who dwell on the 7 impure grounds, while the 5th is a reference to those who dwell on the 3 pure grounds. The last 3 kinds of beings will attain enlightenment. They will never regress. So, in terms of the, let's see here. So we have the oxen and chariot. These can fall back. The chariot of the sun and moon. That's those that are ordinary yet stable. And then those that abide on the first 7 bhumis, the miraculous powers of Shravakas, the miraculous powers of the Buddhas, and those that abide on the 3 pure bhumis. So anyway, these are 5 similes in the ways in which this is then engaged. Parallel with the difference in speed with which progress is made upon the grounds and paths, bodhicitta may be distinguished according to the strength of the determination, basic, medium, or supreme, with which individuals generate it. This will be explained in due course. Okay, chapter 9. Okay. Bodhisattvas who have great determination, perfect skill, diligence, and a wisdom that is profound and sharp will overcome the 2 obscurations in which they are enmeshed and will attain Buddhahood after 3 measureless kalpas. So the 2 obscurations are cognitive and emotional obscurations. With regards to the 3 measureless kalpas, and you might wonder where does this arrogance of the Vajrayana come into play, that here's the Mahayana, the great bodhisattvas, and then they are going to take 3 measureless kalpas, and then there's the Vajrayanas that say they're going to do this in 16, 7, 3, or 1 lifetime. The reason being, just by its sheer definition, the bodhisattva operates with the ordinary mind. And that's why the ordinary mind gradually is purified, and gradually the abiding innate nature is seen, but not seen as something that's spontaneously present in its full nature, but rather as a seed that is cultivated and gradually blossoms. And that's where the approach is on the basis of the ordinary confused mind. The Vajrayana engages wisdom. It engages Buddha nature, that which is spontaneously present and fully blossomed right from the start. And there it's merely a degree to which that is obscured. And that's where the result is already spontaneously present. That's what is referred to as the resultant vehicle. So these come at the, you could say, the approach to the path is very different. We would say the objective is the same, but the proximity is vastly different. So that means if you're standing and looking at a mountain, let's say from 100 kilometers distance, it's no different from the mountain that you might be looking at only a mile away. But there's vast difference whether you're looking at it from a distance or just you're immediately in front of it. So anyway, that's the speed. And then it says how to cultivate bodhicitta. So it reads, as with the planting of a seed, the generation of the Supreme Mind is less important than its actual birth. From three strengths is bodhicitta born: great compassion, stores of merit, taking refuge. So Kangyur Rinpoche comments, to have a fully ripened fruit, it is first necessary to have a seed. In addition to this, however, the main condition for maturation is not simply that the seed should be planted in the earth, but rather the coincidence of other secondary factors. In like manner, it is first necessary to stimulate, indeed fabricate the mind of enlightenment. This contrived bodhicitta is naturally much less important than the totally authentic and spontaneous bodhicitta. So again, this is where we appreciate how we are approximating bodhicitta. We're contriving it. But the thing is, we're contriving something that is actually there. So that's where it's not entirely fraudulent, but it's merely just on the basis of obscurations that we cannot perceive it. But just like if we have an illness and we're being told this is curable, we might not feel it's curable, but we nevertheless proceed along the treatment with the understanding that we trust that it is curable. So that's where the treatment itself will reveal the abiding result. Let's just see what the secondary factors here are. Water, okay, warmth, fertilizer, okay, the necessary conditions. Yeah. So that's where, as much as this might be contrived, you could say bodhicitta could be spontaneous, and indeed, yes, there are examples of such. But nevertheless, for us to bring about the necessary conditions in terms of just thinking sympathetically with others, having empathy for others, trying to identify with others, and so forth. All of these are conditions that stimulate this seed. The causes of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta comes to birth in a perfectly pure mind through the operation of three strengths. The first of these is the meditative development of compassion, the root of bodhicitta. The second is the correct accumulation of merit, brought about, for example, by the 7-branch practice. So I think most of us are familiar with the 7-branch practice, and this is Sokjang Rinpa in Tibetan. It's the stages in which we accumulate merit and we purify. So that's where we says here, the prayers, see chapter 8, the prayer of 7 branches, said that if the mind lacks merit, it is an unsuitable vessel. Bodhicitta will not arise there, just as a king would refuse to live in a beggar's hovel. So this is not so much about the king being snobbish, but it's more about us understanding that without being the proper vessel, then it's just going to be difficult for us to imagine, if you like, bodhicitta. It will be difficult for us to embrace it. 7 branches, they are what we very often chant in liturgies. It's prostration, it's offering, it's confession, it's rejoicing, it's requesting the Dharma, it's requesting the teachers not to pass into nirvana, and it's dedication. So that's the vast store of marriage. So first the compassion, vast store of merit. Finally, by taking refuge in the 3 jewels, negative tendencies are surmounted and a powerful support is created. These 3 strengths are thus the strength of attitude, compassion, the strength of practice, accumulation of merit, and the strength of cause, the taking of refuge. So also then we can see in the preliminary practices, prior to the bodhicitta, we then have the taking of refuge. Who can generate bodhicitta? 17. 2 kinds of beings, it is taught, are able to engender bodhicitta. those with one of 7 pratimoksha ordinations, or anyone with aspiration, the precious palm declares. The middle way which follows this is thus more vast in its approach. The method for the full engendering of bodhicitta is the gathering of merit. So in the middle way, or the tradition of Nagarjuna, the bodhisattva vow is confirmed not on the basis of having particular accomplishment, but on the basis of simply just wishing and conceiving the wish to establish all beings in freedom. So that's the foundation, and then the method then is the gathering of merit. So Kangyur Rinpoche comments, there are 2 traditions associated with the Chittamatra and Madhyamika schools of Mahayana Buddhism concerning people who are able to generate bodhicitta. According to the Chittamatra school, while there is no restriction with regards to bodhicitta in aspiration, the vow of bodhicitta in action may be taken only by one of the 7 pratimoksha. Sorry, I'll start again. According to the Chittamatra school, while there is no restriction with regards to bodhicitta and aspiration, the vow of bodhicitta in action may be taken only by people who have taken one of the 7 pratimoksha ordinations, lay or monastic, both for men and women. Naturally, this does not include the one-day upavasa discipline, which is only a temporary commitment. So again, that's where the bodhicitta, the Chittamatra school is more demanding and requires that one has some of the monastic ordinations. We talk about the monastics in terms of the fully ordained and the novice vows, but we also have lay vows, and that's where within the pratimoksha, you could say the Vinaya, there's also vows for lay persons. But we need to distinguish from what's called the Nine Domba, which are the vows that you might take on the occasion of just a single day. For example, some might take what's known as the 8 vows on the full moon or the new moon. And also you might practice something called Nyungne, which is a practice of Avalokiteshvara, comes down from a great practitioner and nun called Gelongma Palmo. And that's where you also take the 8 vows for the duration of this essentially fasting practice. So that's where these they're just temporary. So it says here, on the other hand, the Madhyamika tradition considers the main factor for the generation of bodhicitta to be aspiration. So that's where in the Madhyamika, simply to have the aspiration, that suffices. As it is written in the Ratnolka Sutra, through faith in the Buddha, faith in Buddha's doctrine, through faith in unsurpassed enlightenment, through faith in all the works of Buddha's children, the truly wise give birth to bodhicitta. Moreover, scriptures like the Gandhavuya, the Bhadrakalpita, Akashagarbha Sutra specify the different physical supports appropriate for the bodhicitta of the generation of bodhicitta. So the Gandhavuya, that's one of the last chapters of the flower ornament sutra, or the Avatamsaka. The Bhadrakalpa is known as the fortunate Eon. So some might be familiar with that. These are translated into English. I don't know about the Akashagarbha Sutra. Yeah. In the Ratnakuta Sutra, it is said that innumerable beings, gods, nagas, asuras, garudas, and other non-humans have turned their minds to unsurpassable enlightenment. So it's not uniquely for the for the humans only. So these sutras include also these other kinds of beings. This is taken up by the Prasangika Madhyamika school, which is more inclusive than the Chittamatra and affirms that, provided the wish for bodhicitta is perfect, any physical support will serve. So the Prasangika Madhyamika school is famously the school associated with Buddha Palita and Chandrakirti. For example, in the context of Songsa Gyalmsen Kangyur Rinpoche's Siddhartha Intent group, then we've studied the introduction to the middle way, the Madhyamika Avatara, which is an essential text that outlines the approach of the Prasangika Madhyamika. So that's where they would be completely inclusive, as long as there's somebody who has the wish to generate bodhicitta. See here. So it says here, this is from Yönten Gyatso, it says, this is the general approach. More specifically, however, in beings whose general attitude militates against the bodhicitta training, for instance, persons who are incapable of taking the vow to refrain from killing, bodhicitta cannot arise. Even if they go through the motions of receiving their vows, they accumulate nothing but downfalls. So, okay, so you can participate in the ritual, but unless you have the actual attitude, then it's not going to help. The ritual for taking the there's one more line here. Both traditions agree, however, that the prerequisite for the perfect arising bodhicitta is the accumulation of merit. This accounts for the importance attached to the making of offerings at the moment of taking the vow. When Atisha was at a certain place in Tibet, he twice refused to give the bodhisattva vow because the offerings made were meager and insufficient. He said that because the offerings, in the sense of the preparation of the place and so on, as described in the text, were poor, it would be difficult for bodhicitta to develop. At the third request, this time accompanied by more extensive preparations, he announced that the offerings were just sufficient and consented to give the vow. So this, of course, doesn't reflect on Atisha's, you could say, this doesn't in any way imply that Atisha was, how do you say, greedy for offerings, but simply just understanding what are the necessary conditions for successfully receiving the vows. Okay. Okay, so here is a question. So for a fool who recognizes doing more harm than good, both to myself and to others, do I continue to attempt to engage in bodhicitta activities even though I have no wisdom and no skill? Or should I refrain and focus solely on my practice of bodhicitta aspiration? Look, there's a red thread that runs through the Mahayana, and that is can do. So there's never a time where we'll say, oh yeah, give up. Yeah, don't fool yourself, give up. There's always the encouragement to proceed. And so, of course, we're all imperfect. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be practicing. We're called practitioners. We're not experts. We're practicing. So there's a whole lot of imperfection. At the time of enlightenment, yes, that's where we say that's where we're fully perfected. Until then, expect imperfection. And of course, we should never in any way stop. And yes, that's the mere fact that we can recognize our shortcomings indicates our potential for perfecting. After all, that's the intelligence that comes from a place that's not caught up in these shortcomings. So we should definitely just definitely. Around here, there's somebody who very kindly actually made this bumper sticker quoting the Dalai Lama, and it just says never give up. It just says never give up. I think it says never give up on sentient beings, or never give up on compassion for sentient beings, right? From the Dalai Lama. Yeah. So yeah. The ritual for taking the vow of bodhicitta. Now this we also have in the Way of the Bodhisattva. I think it's chapter 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly. So inculcating the correct attitude. So 18. So it reads, did I just miss something here? It's not good. Let me, okay. All right, hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay, it'll just be a moment. I think we're sort of there pretty much. This is so annoying. It's really just a formatting issue. It's Microsoft Word. Bingo. All right. Okay, we're back. So, 18, right? Okay. I beg your pardon. Okay. All right, 18. Yeah. Its cause is Buddha nature, found within the minds of all. Its condition is attendance on a virtuous friend, the perfect teacher who is like a wishing gem, whose mind and heart are filled with bodhicitta. So that's where we speak about Buddha nature and then its necessary condition. I think also, what is it again in the jewel ornament of liberation? That's also where we talk about the basis and that which and the condition. I think it's Buddha nature is the condition, and the condition or the is the spiritual friend. The perfect teacher. These are chapters 1 and 2, I think, in the jewel ornament of liberation. So that's really expounded upon. So the perfect teacher who's like a wishing gem, whose mind and heart filled with bodhicitta. So here we're talking about, again, this is important in the modern conversation, not a perfect teacher as some sort of career, somebody who has a job as a guru, but an individual who's free from any faults. That's a really important theme, because it's so often in the modern conversation we just don't assume that anybody has that such exists. This is really important. This is the definition for being a spiritual teacher. It is someone, even if not perfectly enlightened, somebody whose mind and heart are filled with bodhicitta. And as far as this world would go, this is somebody who's completely uncorrupted and pure. So such an individual makes a huge difference in one's life. So that's why we talk about it being like a wishing gem. It's not just sort of empty fluff, but it's a very real situation in which there's somebody of tremendous authenticity that inspires. And what defines their authenticity is this mind and heart filled with bodhicitta. So Kangyur Rinpoche then comments, the extraordinary causal condition for the birth of bodhicitta is the luminous nature of the mind. So that's a causal condition. This is present in all sentient beings and contains within itself all the immense qualities of the Sugata, which are by nature apt to ripen. It is like a seed that holds the potential shoot within it. As the Chandra Pradipa Sutra says, all beings have within themselves the Buddha seed. Provided that they generate the bodhicitta perfectly, they all, without exception, will be Buddhas. So that's the extraordinary causal conditions. Let's see what the translate. That's just the cause. The dominant condition for the coming to birth of bodhicitta is perfect attendance upon an authentic spiritual friend. As the holder of the vows and an expert in the great vehicle, the Guru must be in sovereign possession of all supreme qualities and, like a wish-fulfilling jewel, must be able to fulfill the hopes of his or her disciples. Such a Guru, whose heart is filled with bodhicitta, is the person from whom the vow should be taken. So again, this is someone who qualifies in all these regards. It is written in the Samvara Vimshaka, Gurus who are faithful to their vows, possessing wisdom and ability. From Gurus such as these should vows be taken. Stanza 19. He or she sets forth the Dharma, perfect at its outset, middle, and its end. And as the Alankara and Gandharva, both described, explains the boundless perfect qualities of bodhicitta. So again, here I think we're referring to Asanga's Mahayana Sutra Alamkara and the last section of the Avatamsaka, the Huayan scripture. So that's where we talk about the qualities of the bodhicitta. Let's see here what Kangyur Rinpoche says. Teachings received from such a source are excellent in the beginning, for they stimulate a feeling of weariness and revulsion towards samsara. And by the way, revulsion towards samsara doesn't mean that we don't want to go down on the streets, because that's samsara. It doesn't mean that where we're living is samsara, and we should feel revulsion. What we're feeling revulsion about is our habits, is our habitual patterns, our obscurations, and so on. And revulsion comes on the basis of determination. It's similar, we've been fooled and we won't be fooled again. That sort of revulsion. But to the extent that it's, it's forceful. Shenlok really means almost disgust. So it says here, they are excellent in the middle. So that was the beginning, that we have this being fed up with samsara, essentially with delusion, with self-deception. So then it says, they are excellent in the middle, meaning the teachings, for they prevent attachment to nirvana, which is the other extreme. And that's again where the spiritual path could lead to some degree of self-absorption, a little nirvana, where we are just completely tied up in ourselves. And that's not what the spiritual, and particularly the Mahayana, is about. So that's where the middle of the path prevents one from falling into this extreme. Finally, they are excellent in the end, for they inspire the heart with enthusiasm for bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, emptiness endowed with the core of compassion that abides in neither samsara nor nirvana. And that's how we should understand the perfect awakened condition. It goes beyond having falling into confusion or being free from confusion. There's no attachment to either. And there is no confusion in itself, but as such, then also there's no attachment to personal peace. And this comes because this bodhicitta, this awakened condition, it is wisdom that is not deceived, and yet it possesses, its very character is compassion. The emptiness which possesses the heart of compassion. Such teachers that possesses these qualities, such teachers are able to expound the infinite qualities of bodhicitta as described in scriptures, such as the Sutra Alamkara and the Gandharva, the Ajatasashastru Parivarta, the Kashyapa Parivarta, and Ratnarashi Sutras. Okay. Accumulating merit. So this is about taking the vow. So that's where we begin with, first of all, identifying from whom we should, the attitude, and then also from whom we should receive. So one is the causal, the cause, and the other is the, let's say, secondary or dominant, the secondary condition or the dominant cause, or the dominant condition. So that's the first two. Then accumulating merit preparing the place. So then it says, the place in which you take the bodhicitta vow should be well cleaned and beautiful, asperged with scent and saffron water. Wash your face, and, thinking only of the triple gem, with joy arrange and lay out every kind of offering. So if anyone has ever taken the Bodhisattva vow, you will know that goes with actually quite a bit of preparation. One would make vast offerings, one would dress up, and the place would be uplifted and so forth. So this is a place where one, as Kangyur Rinpoche will now describe, the place where the vow bodhicitta is to be taken should be beautifully adorned and cleansed with various kinds of perfume and fragrant substances. It should be well swept and sprinkled with saffron water and bajung. Bajung, sometimes translated as substance of cow. Okay, bajung, literally deriving from the cow. This term refers to a substance prepared in accordance with ancient Indian tradition from various ingredients derived from cows. It's not easy to come by since the ingredients must be taken only on the full moon and at the moment immediately after the cow has calved for the first time. Moreover, the animal in question must be red, without the slightest trace of white. Now, we actually have this in rituals. For example, when you have bumpas, the bumpa that you purify, you should ideally have bajong in it. Now, most of the mindra, the sacred medicine that we come about, contains bajong, so we're covered. But it is apparently something that's used all across. It's not just the tantrikas, but also in sort of in the monastic contexts. One uses this substance. Yeah. So it should be well swept and sprinkled with saffron water and bajong, substance of cow, and scented with incense and so forth. Then, as a gesture of respect, rather than vanity, one should bathe and put on clean clothes, in a spirit of intense devotion and faith, and without any pretentiousness or self-advertisement. With the mind preoccupied only with the three jewels, one should prepare every kind of offering: hanging tassels, parasols, banner of victory, canopies, and so forth, and every kind of substance, pleasure to the senses, the 7 attributes of royalty, the 8 auspicious symbols, and the 8 substances, and so forth. Everything should be laid out tastefully and with sincere rejoicing. Okay. 7 attributes of royalty. I think we might have these in the mandala offering. Yes, in Nadun. The 7 attributes of royalty, that is 7 possessions of a Chakravartin, are the precious golden wheel, the precious wood-fulfilling jewel, the precious queen, the precious minister, the precious elephant, the precious horse, and the precious general. These symbolize the 7 sublime riches. Ashvaghosha says, the precious wheel, rolling day and night along the path of virtue, symbolizes faith. The precious queen, arrayed in beautiful ornaments and garlands, symbolizes discipline. The precious minister symbolizes generosity that brings forth merit and wisdom on a vast scale. The precious general symbolizes learning that vanquishes the enemy of wrong thoughts. The supreme horse symbolizes the sense of shame, which buries the defiled emotions in egolessness. The mighty elephant symbolizes consideration of others, discarding all incorrect conduct. The precious jewel, here we go. Come on. No. The precious jewel. Okay. Let's see. Tricky business, isn't it? Ah, there we are. Precious jewel symbolizes aspiration for oneself and others. These constitute sublime riches endowed with limitless excellence. All other kinds of wealth bring forth suffering. Then we also offer these, the 8 auspicious symbols. These are also decorated, so we might as well have a look at that. The 8 auspicious symbols are the 8 symbols referring to 8 aspects of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. They are the everlasting knot, the lotus, the canopy, the conch, the wheel, the banner, the vase, and the golden fishes. This many of us are familiar with from, you could say, decorations in yeah, we have it a lot in Tibetan temple art. The 8 substances, Zegye, that were offered to the Buddha after his enlightenment. They are white mustard, curd, a mirror, a white conch shell turning in clockwise direction, bezoar, orange-colored powder, durva grass, and kusha grass. So these are ways in which we decorate the place, inviting the field of merit. Okay. Set up sacred images, supports for your samaya. Then invite the wisdom beings, praying them to rest therein. More swift than lovers mindful of their trysts, the Buddhas will not tarry, nor be drawn to other fields. Okay. Proclaiming the truth, in other words, the power of compassion, the power and compassion of the 3 jewels, one should visualize that one's house, or the room in which the ceremony is to take place, is a vast palace. This is located in the center of an immense Pure Land and is greater than the 3,000-fold universe. It is made entirely of precious substances and is exquisitely adorned. In the center of this palace, numerous beautiful thrones have been set up. They are encrusted with gems and spread with silks, and upon each of them is a lotus, sun, and moon. One should then invoke the 3 jewels, requesting them to enter the consecrated representations of the enlightened body, speech, and mind, such as images of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the volumes of the Mahayana scriptures. As a formula, one may use the text taken from the Chandrapradipa Sutra. Arise, arise, Buddhas who possess the 10 powers, etc. Or again, one may recite the prayer in the Tantra Rigpa Chogigyu, beginning protectors of all beings. Thus, with speech and melody, one invokes the wisdom beings from the expanse of ultimate reality, requesting them to come and remain inseparably in the consecrated supports. And again, this is where us who come from a theistic traditions, we might think, what's that? How is that possible? And of course, here's again where we're talking about the Buddhas in the sense that these are intrinsic to the expanse of ultimate reality that we share. So we're not importing the Buddhas from anywhere else, except you could say from the depth of our own wisdom disposition. But here we're not too concerned about whether we're representing this in terms of ultimate truth or relative truth. And that's where so often we simply use the language of relative truth. And this for the modern person is very confusing. And that's where we continually just need to understand this is simply just skillful means that accommodates our dualistic perception. We of course understand that the Buddhas then abide nowhere else except within the depth of the ultimate nature, which is intrinsic to our own experience. And yet at the same time, presently we're not aware of that. And so accommodating the fact that we think in terms of us and them, self and other, this and that, the skillful way of approaching this practically is simply then thinking that we're invoking the wisdom beings from somewhere else or from the expanse of ultimate reality. Except we also understand that expanse is not anywhere else. So that's why we request them to come and remain inseparably in the consecrated supports, which are then again, according to our convention, namely the external shrine with the offerings and so forth. According to the images given in the root text, the Buddhas will forsake all the other Buddha fields of the 10 directions and will come as soon as they are summoned. Quicker than a mother will rush toward her only child who has been lost and found, and quicker than a lover runs when he remembers a tryst promised with his beloved. As the Ratnakuta says, in front of those who think of them with faith, the Buddhas stand radiating blessings and dispelling faults. So this we so often see. And essentially associated with the practice that we call Buddha Anusmriti, recollecting the Buddha, where the Buddha says, whoever thinks of me, I reside in front of them. Similarly, also with Guru Rinpoche, whoever recites my mantra or the 7-line supplication, I'm right there with them. So again, we need to understand this understanding in which we are accommodating relative truth as a skillful means for touching on the already spontaneous presence of awakening. So in the root text, there now follows some verses of entreaty. Okay, just a minute. I'm just going to have to adjust something, and also I think just bring in some light. Just a second. So these are the verses of entreaty, calling on the Buddhas. Then pray to the supreme protectors, friends of all without exception, destroyers of the hosts of evil demons, enlightened ones who see things in their nature and their multiplicity. Ask them to be present in that place. So, of course, here the only evil demon we're talking about is delusion. The qualities of seeing things in their nature and their multiplicity we refer to as the 2 wisdoms of the Buddhas, knowing reality as it is and also understanding how reality is perceived by sentient beings. So invoking the Buddhas with the recognition of their qualities, we ask them to be present in this location. Kangyur Rinpoche says, first an invocation is made to the supreme protectors, the guardian of all who dwell in samsara, the sublime friends who shield beings from sufferings, summoning them to act as the field for the accumulation of merit and as objects of refuge. The disciple calls upon all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, the enlightened destroyers of the hosts of evil, who are free from the 2 veils of emotional and cognitive obscuration, and who thus know and perceive without attachment or impediment all phenomena in their multiplicity as well as in their ultimate nature. Okay, and then the next will be the offering, cleansing, waters, and clothes. We'll stop at this point today. Again, you'll be familiar with this from the words of what's it called, the Way of the Bodhisattva. Okay, any questions? No. So, by the way, there's been a fair bit of interruptions here and there because I was in retreat and also I'm going to be traveling, but we will meet same time next Saturday. So this the Treasury of Precious Qualities study continues, at least until Christmas. Something you can count on. Woohoo! Okay. All right. If there's no questions, then we'll conclude with some dedication. Through all our births, wherever we may be born, may we be endowed with the 7 good qualities of the higher realms. As soon as we're born, may we meet with the Dharma and have the freedom to practice it properly. At that time, may we please the Holy Gurus and practice the Dharma throughout the day and night. Realizing the Dharma and accomplishing its essential meaning, may we cross the ocean of existence in that life. Thoroughly teaching the Holy Dharma in this world, may we never tire of accomplishing the benefit of others. By this vast benefit of others, without partiality or bias, may all attain Buddhahood together. So, thank you very much for joining me here in this study. See you. All is well. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.